When it comes to managing your emotions and maintaining a sense of calm in the face of adversity, one of the most powerful things you can do is control your reaction. This concept is often easier said than done, but it is a practice that can be cultivated over time and can significantly impact the quality of your life. The reality is that we cannot control everything that happens around us, but we can absolutely control how we respond to it. By understanding this, you open yourself to a deeper sense of empowerment and peace. At the core of controlling your reaction is recognizing that your emotions are a direct result of your thoughts. Every time something happens to you, whether it's a rude comment, an unexpected setback, or a stressful situation, your brain evaluates the situation and triggers an emotional response. This reaction is not inherently bad, but the challenge lies in whether you allow that emotional response to dictate your behavior, or if you choose to take a step back and thoughtfully decide how to respond. In many situations, the impulse is to react immediately, often with anger or frustration, especially when we feel disrespected, misunderstood, or wronged. However, this reaction is often fueled by the ego or a sense of insecurity. It's driven by a need to defend oneself, prove a point, or assert dominance over others. The issue with this type of reaction is that it tends to escalate situations rather than resolve them, leading to unnecessary conflict and draining your emotional energy. A major part of controlling your reaction is recognizing that these emotional impulses don't have to control you. You don't have to give in to the urge to react impulsively. One of the simplest ways to start this practice is by taking a pause. When something triggers an emotional response in you, instead of reacting immediately, take a few deep breaths. This brief moment of stillness gives you the space to gather your thoughts and reconsider how you want to engage with the situation. During this pause, you allow your mind to shift from an emotional reaction to a more rational, thoughtful response. You give yourself the opportunity to assess the situation from different angles, perhaps even from the perspective of the other person involved. This is where emotional intelligence comes in. Understanding that everyone has their own issues, struggles, and pressures can often help you see their actions as less personal and more about their own state of mind. When you take a moment to reflect, you realize that how others behave toward you often says more about them than it does about you. Another important aspect of controlling your reaction is to detach your sense of self-worth from the actions of others. When we let ourselves be defined by how others treat us, we give away our power. If someone criticizes us, disrespects us, or acts out of line, it's easy to feel hurt or defensive. However, when you separate yourself from the judgment of others and remember that their actions are their own, you free yourself from the need to react. This detachment allows you to stand firm in your own values and maintain your composure regardless of external circumstances. The ability to control your reaction also comes from understanding the long-term consequences of emotional responses. In the heat of the moment, it can feel good to let out that burst of anger or frustration, but the aftermath rarely feels satisfying. Hurting someone with a sharp word or escalating a situation can often leave you with feelings of regret or guilt. On the other hand, choosing to remain calm and respond thoughtfully may not always offer immediate satisfaction, but it leads to a sense of peace and clarity in the long run. Furthermore, controlling your reaction has the power to influence the energy around you. When you respond to others with grace, patience, and understanding, it often sets a tone for how they will respond in return. People are more likely to mirror the behavior you exhibit, and by keeping your cool, you create an environment where conflict can be resolved more constructively. In situations of high tension, your calm demeanor can be the stabilizing force that diffuses the chaos and guides others toward a more positive interaction. Lastly, the practice of controlling your reaction is something that strengthens over time. It's not about suppressing your emotions or pretending that you're unaffected by what's happening around you, but rather about choosing to engage in a way that aligns with your values and keeps you grounded. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes to navigate challenging situations without being swept up by your emotions. It allows you to stay true to yourself, even in the face of adversity, and to respond in a way that fosters peace and understanding rather than conflict and regret. In life, there are countless moments when we find ourselves frustrated, anxious, or overwhelmed by circumstances beyond our control. Whether it's the actions of others, an unexpected setback, or an unforeseen challenge, it's easy to fall into the trap of focusing on things that we cannot change. This mental trap often leads to wasted energy and unnecessary stress as we fixate on what is outside our realm of influence. The key to achieving peace and progress is understanding that we must focus on what we can change rather than what we cannot. The first step in this process is acknowledging the difference between what is within your control and what is not. There will always be elements of life that are beyond your ability to influence, whether it's the weather, other people's actions, or even the passage of time. Trying to control these uncontrollable factors only drains your emotional and mental resources. It's a futile effort that keeps you trapped in a cycle of frustration and helplessness. When you become aware of this, you can choose to redirect your focus toward the things that are within your grasp. One of the most important things you can change is your perspective. Your attitude and mindset play a significant role in how you navigate the world. If you approach life with a negative or defeatist attitude, you're more likely to become discouraged by challenges that arise. On the other hand, when you shift your mindset to one of optimism and possibility, you are more likely to find solutions and maintain your composure when obstacles come your way. Focusing on your perspective allows you to maintain control over how you respond to the world, even when you can't control the world itself. Another area within your control is your behavior. While you cannot dictate how others behave, you always have the power to choose how you react. If someone is rude to you or makes a mistake, you may feel upset or hurt, but your response is entirely up to you. Will you respond with anger or frustration, or will you take a step back and address the situation with patience and understanding? Your actions, no matter how small, can change the course of a situation and influence the people around you. When you focus on how you behave in response to external events, you regain control over your environment, even if the environment itself remains chaotic. Furthermore, you can focus on your personal growth and development. While external circumstances may seem unpredictable or uncontrollable, how you improve yourself is entirely within your power. This includes your physical health, your emotional intelligence, and your professional skills. When you dedicate time and energy to improving these areas of your life, you become better equipped to handle the challenges that come your way. Personal growth is a long-term investment that pays off in resilience, wisdom, and the ability to navigate even the toughest situations with grace and confidence. Another key area where you can make a difference is in how you manage your time. Time is one of the few resources in life that cannot be replenished once it's spent. Therefore, how you use your time is one of the most important decisions you make every day. While you can't control external events that eat into your time, you can control how you prioritize and manage your schedule. Focusing on what matters most to you, whether it's work, relationships, or self-care, can create a sense of purpose and fulfillment that helps mitigate feelings of stress and helplessness. By setting clear intentions for how you spend your time, you can make progress even in the midst of uncertainty. On a deeper level, focusing on what you can change often involves letting go of expectations about how things should be. Many times, frustration arises when things don't unfold according to our plans or desires. However, life is unpredictable, and rigidity in our expectations can set us up for disappointment. When you learn to accept the flow of life and adapt to circumstances as they arise, you start to recognize that you have the power to make the most of any situation, no matter how unexpected or challenging it may be. This acceptance doesn't mean passivity, but rather an active choice to focus on the present moment and make the best of what you have. In relationships, you cannot change another person, but you can change how you relate to them. Whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, or a work relationship, understanding that you can only control your own actions and reactions can help you foster healthier, more constructive connections. Instead of trying to change the behavior of others, focus on how you communicate, how you set boundaries, and how you show up in the relationship. When you focus on what you can change in the context of your relationships, you create a more positive environment for growth, understanding, and connection. Ultimately, focusing on what you can change is about taking ownership of your life. It's about recognizing that while you may not have control over every situation, you always have control over how you navigate those situations. It's a powerful practice that encourages you to focus your energy on meaningful actions and decisions, rather than dwelling on frustrations and limitations. By consistently redirecting your attention to what you can influence, you begin to feel a sense of agency and empowerment, which leads to a more peaceful and fulfilled life. In life, it's easy to become consumed by the smaller, more immediate details of a situation, especially when things aren't going the way we hoped or expected. Whether it's a disagreement with someone, an unexpected setback at work, or personal struggles, we can often lose sight of the larger context. In these moments, it's crucial to step back and remember the bigger picture, to regain perspective and not let the small, temporary frustrations overshadow our broader goals and values. This practice is about recognizing that each moment is part of a much larger journey, one that is constantly unfolding, and that the challenges we face today are often just temporary obstacles on our way towards something greater. Remembering the bigger picture means understanding that life is a series of ups and downs, and no single event defines your entire existence. When we find ourselves in a difficult or stressful situation, it's easy to let that moment consume us, making us feel as if the world is falling apart. But in reality, life is dynamic and ever-changing, and no situation, no matter how challenging, is permanent. Every hardship or setback is just one chapter in the larger story of your life, and often these difficult moments contribute to your growth, learning, and resilience. By stepping back and seeing your current circumstances as a part of a much larger narrative, you're able to avoid the trap of getting bogged down in the moment, and can instead focus on how these challenges fit into the bigger picture of who you're becoming. It also helps to remember that our personal struggles are often not as significant as we perceive them in the moment. While it's natural to feel overwhelmed by difficulties, putting things into context can shift your perspective. When you remember that everyone faces challenges, whether personal, professional, or emotional, you begin to see that you're not alone in your experiences. Every person, no matter how successful or confident they appear, has faced hardships of their own. The bigger picture reminds you that your current situation is not unique in its difficulty, and that in the grand scope of life, it may not be as important as it seems right now. This can provide a sense of relief and perspective, helping you avoid feeling overwhelmed by your struggles. Additionally, the bigger picture involves recognizing that each experience, whether positive or negative, contributes to your growth. When we are in the midst of a difficult situation, it's easy to become consumed by negative emotions like frustration or self-doubt. But if we take a step back and reflect on our past experiences, we realize that even the most challenging moments have helped shape who we are today. It is through adversity that we learn the most about ourselves, our resilience, and our capacity for growth. By remembering the bigger picture, you understand that what may seem like a failure or setback is simply part of the learning process, and in the long run, it will contribute to your overall personal development.
Another critical aspect of remembering the bigger picture is realizing that much of life is beyond our control. It's easy to get frustrated when things don't go our way or when we can't control how others behave. But understanding that there are so many factors outside of our control allows us to release the need for perfection and to focus on what we can actually influence. When you let go of the desire to control everything, you're freed from the stress of trying to manage the uncontrollable, and you can instead focus your energy on areas where you do have agency, like how you respond to challenges or how you choose to approach your goals. Moreover, keeping the bigger picture in mind often means remembering the values and long-term goals that guide your life. In times of stress or hardship, it's easy to lose sight of why you're doing what you're doing or what truly matters to you. But when you zoom out and think about your broader aspirations, whether that's building meaningful relationships, advancing in your career, or achieving personal fulfillment, your current challenges start to feel less overwhelming. The frustration of a difficult day or the disappointment of a minor failure doesn't seem as significant when you consider it in the context of your broader objectives. By keeping your eyes on the long-term vision, you're able to stay motivated and focused even when the path gets rocky. The bigger picture also reminds you that success is not defined by isolated moments or individual accomplishments. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that a single setback or failure means we've failed overall. But life is not a series of individual, disconnected events. It's a continuous journey where each moment builds upon the next. Success is not the absence of failure, but the ability to keep moving forward despite it. When you take a step back and look at your life as a whole, you begin to see that setbacks are just temporary, and that they're often the necessary steps in the process of growth and success. By keeping this perspective, you can find comfort in knowing that every difficulty is just one part of a larger, ongoing story. Finally, remembering the bigger picture is about recognizing that life is constantly changing. Circumstances, relationships, emotions, and even our goals can evolve over time. This realization allows us to accept that nothing is permanent and that challenges or difficult emotions will eventually fade. What feels overwhelming today may not even be a memory in the future. When you remind yourself of the transient nature of everything around you, it becomes easier to let go of the pressure and stress that comes with being consumed by the present moment. The bigger picture teaches you to be patient and trust that time and perspective will bring clarity and resolution. By remembering the bigger picture, you shift your focus from the small, immediate challenges to the larger context of your life, values, and long-term goals. It's a reminder that everything you experience, whether good or bad, is part of a much larger journey. Each moment contributes to who you are becoming and how you navigate the world around you. By keeping this broader perspective in mind, you can find peace, resilience, and clarity even in the face of life's challenges. Letting go of ego is a powerful practice that has the potential to profoundly change the way we experience the world and interact with others. The ego, often thought of as our sense of self-importance or identity, is the part of us that seeks validation, recognition, and control. It is the voice in our head that wants to be right, that craves approval, and that feels threatened when things don't go as planned. While having a healthy sense of self is important, an overactive ego can hinder personal growth, create unnecessary conflict, and prevent us from experiencing true peace and fulfillment. Letting go of ego doesn't mean losing a sense of self. Rather, it involves releasing the need for validation, attachment to outcomes, and a constant desire for control. It's about learning to embrace humility, empathy, and self-awareness in a way that frees us from the constraints of the ego. One of the first steps in letting go of the ego is recognizing when it's at play. The ego often manifests itself in subtle ways through feelings of superiority or inferiority, defensiveness, or a desire to dominate conversations or situations. It's easy to become blind to the ego's influence because it often operates under the guise of protecting us or serving our best interests. For example, when we feel slighted or criticized, our ego reacts by trying to defend our honor or justify our actions. In these moments, we may find ourselves reacting impulsively, becoming defensive, or feeling the need to prove ourselves right. Recognizing these moments for what they are, a manifestation of the ego, is the first step toward letting it go. Letting go of ego requires a shift in perspective, moving away from self-centeredness and toward a more holistic view of the world. It involves understanding that we are not the center of everything and that our worth is not tied to our ability to control situations or the way others perceive us. When we let go of ego, we free ourselves from the constant need for validation or the pressure to prove ourselves. Instead, we begin to find satisfaction in simply being, in acting with integrity, and in embracing the inherent worth we already possess, regardless of external circumstances. By relinquishing the need to prove our value, we make room for deeper connections with others and greater self-acceptance. One of the most significant ways letting go of ego can transform our lives is by improving our relationships with others. The ego tends to create barriers between people, making us more concerned with being right than with understanding others. It fuels judgment, criticism, and competition, all of which lead to disconnection and conflict. When we let go of ego, we open ourselves up to genuine empathy and understanding. Instead of viewing others through the lens of comparison or competition, we begin to see them as equals, each with their own unique experiences and challenges. This shift in perspective allows us to approach conversations and interactions with greater openness, humility, and respect. It also enables us to listen without judgment, to accept others as they are, and to let go of the need to change or control them. Another important aspect of letting go of ego is relinquishing attachment to outcomes. The ego is often tied to the desire for specific results or achievement. Whether it's success in our career, approval from others, or the validation of being right, the ego thrives on external recognition and tangible outcomes. However, when we become overly attached to these outcomes, we risk losing sight of the process and the joy that comes from simply engaging in life without attachment. Letting go of ego means releasing the need for specific outcomes and learning to appreciate the journey. It's about letting go of the need for everything to go a certain way and trusting that, regardless of the result, we are still worthy and capable. Letting go of ego also means embracing vulnerability and authenticity. The ego often shields us from our vulnerabilities, creating a facade of strength or perfection that doesn't allow us to fully connect with others or with ourselves. When we let go of ego, we stop pretending to be something we're not, and we begin to show up as our true, unguarded selves. This vulnerability opens the door to deeper, more meaningful connections and experiences. It allows us to acknowledge our imperfections and learn from them, rather than hiding behind a mask of self-protection. By letting go of ego, we release the pressure to be flawless and embrace the beauty of our authentic selves.
Moreover, letting go of ego can lead to a deeper sense of inner peace and contentment. When we are constantly driven by the ego's demands, whether it's the need to be admired, successful, or superior, we are never truly satisfied. The ego is insatiable. It constantly wants more and more. When we let go of this need for external validation, we shift our focus inward and begin to cultivate a sense of peace that comes from within. We stop seeking approval from others and start finding fulfillment in our own actions, values, and self-awareness. This shift allows us to experience a deep sense of inner calm, knowing that our worth is not dependent on external factors, but on who we are at our core. Ultimately, letting go of ego is an ongoing practice, one that requires self-awareness, patience, and a willingness to confront our own limitations. It's not about rejecting or denying parts of ourselves, but about finding balance and harmony within. It's about releasing the need to control, the desire to be right, and the attachment to outcomes, and instead embracing a life of humility, authenticity, and peace. As we let go of ego, we free ourselves from the constant struggle for validation and recognition, and instead we find the freedom to simply be, to live in the moment, and to connect deeply with others. And this practice not only brings greater personal fulfillment, but also enhances our relationships and our ability to navigate the world with greater compassion and understanding. Practicing empathy is one of the most profound and impactful ways to connect with others and build meaningful relationships. At its core, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It goes beyond simply acknowledging someone else's experience. It requires a deeper level of emotional engagement, where we actively try to put ourselves in another person's shoes and experience the world from their perspective. While empathy can be challenging, especially when we're wrapped up in our own emotions or struggles, it is essential for fostering understanding, compassion, and cooperation in both personal and professional relationships. When we practice empathy, we open ourselves to the vulnerability of others. It means taking the time to listen, not just to the words being said, but also to the emotions behind those words. So often, we can be quick to judge, offer advice, or make assumptions based on our own experiences. However, true empathy requires us to momentarily set aside our own viewpoints and listen with an open heart and mind. This kind of active listening involves giving someone your full attention without interruption or distraction so that they feel truly heard. It's about focusing on understanding the emotion behind the words and allowing the other person to feel validated, even if we don't fully agree with them or have a solution to offer. Empathy also requires emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize and understand both our own emotions and the emotions of others. By becoming more attuned to how people are feeling, we can better respond to their needs and provide the support or comfort they require. For instance, if a friend is going through a difficult time, empathy allows us to recognize their sadness or frustration and respond with care and understanding, rather than judgment or impatience. It's about showing compassion for what someone else is experiencing, whether or not we have personally gone through something similar. When we approach situations with empathy, we can offer a space where people feel safe expressing themselves without fear of being criticized or misunderstood. One of the key elements of empathy is the ability to not only acknowledge someone's feelings, but also validate them. It's easy to dismiss or minimize another person's emotions, especially when we may not understand why they are feeling a certain way. However, practicing empathy means recognizing that everyone's feelings are valid, regardless of whether we agree with them. Instead of telling someone to get over it or calm down, empathy involves understanding that their emotions are real and worthy of respect. This validation helps people feel accepted and understood, which in turn fosters a deeper connection and trust. When we make space for people to feel their emotions without judgment, it creates an environment where they feel safe to be vulnerable and open. Empathy also allows us to bridge the gap between different perspectives. People come from diverse backgrounds with varying experiences and beliefs. What may seem trivial to one person might be deeply important to someone else, and what may be an easy challenge for one individual might be a significant struggle for another. By practicing empathy, we can begin to understand the complexities of each person's life and situation. We start to see the world not only through our own eyes, but through the eyes of others, helping us to cultivate a more inclusive and compassionate approach to relationships. When we acknowledge and respect differing perspectives, we build stronger, more cohesive communities where people feel valued and understood. Furthermore, empathy is not just about understanding the pain or struggles of others. It also involves celebrating their joys and successes. When we truly care about someone's happiness and well-being, we share in their victories with enthusiasm and positivity. This form of empathy strengthens bonds by showing that we are genuinely invested in the happiness and success of others, not just when they are suffering, but also when they are thriving. It means congratulating someone on their achievements, expressing genuine happiness for them, and offering support during times of celebration as much as during times of difficulty. This holistic approach to empathy nurtures deeper, more balanced relationships. Practicing empathy also fosters self-awareness. When we begin to understand others on a deeper emotional level, we also gain insights into our own emotional landscape. By putting ourselves in someone else's shoes, we often recognize our own biases, assumptions, and emotional triggers. This awareness allows us to address any unconscious prejudices or judgments we might hold, and move toward becoming more compassionate and open-minded individuals. It also helps us develop better emotional regulation, as we learn how to process our own feelings while being sensitive to the feelings of others. In addition, empathy plays a critical role in conflict resolution. When we approach disagreements with empathy, we prioritize understanding over winning. Rather than focusing on proving ourselves right, we focus on understanding where the other person is coming from. This mindset opens the door for productive conversations, where both parties feel heard and respected. Empathy in conflict resolution helps diffuse tension and create a more collaborative atmosphere where solutions can be reached that take both parties' perspectives into account. Moreover, empathy leads to greater emotional connection. In both personal and professional relationships, when we are empathetic, we create an environment of trust and understanding. People are more likely to open up and share their true thoughts and feelings when they know they are being listened to with empathy. This connection fosters loyalty, cooperation, and mutual respect, as people feel valued not just for what they can provide or accomplish, but for who they are. When empathy is present, relationships become deeper and more meaningful, as they are rooted in understanding and genuine care. Ultimately, practicing empathy is a continuous journey that requires patience, self-reflection, and a willingness to be vulnerable. It's not always easy, especially when we feel disconnected or frustrated, but it is one of the most powerful tools for creating stronger, more compassionate relationships and building a more understanding world. When we practice empathy, we choose to see others as more than just their actions or words. We see them as human beings with complex emotions, experiences, and stories. This deeper connection helps us navigate the world with more kindness, respect, and a greater sense of unity. Prioritizing inner peace is one of the most transformative and essential practices in cultivating a fulfilling life. In the fast-paced world we live in, it's easy to become swept up in the constant flow of external demands, responsibilities, and distractions. From the pressure of work to personal relationships to the myriad of thoughts and concerns that fill our minds, it can feel as if there's little time or space for peace. However, inner peace is not something that happens by chance or external circumstance. It is something we must intentionally cultivate. Prioritizing inner peace means learning to step back from the chaos, quieting the noise, and creating an internal environment that is calm, balanced, and resilient. It involves recognizing that true peace comes from within, not from external situations, and that our ability to find calm amidst turbulence is one of the greatest sources of strength and clarity. At the core of prioritizing inner peace is the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness involves being fully present in the moment, without judgment or distraction. It's about stepping away from the constant flow of thoughts about the past or future and focusing on the here and now. When we allow ourselves to be present, we reduce the stress and anxiety that often come from ruminating on what has already happened or worrying about what might happen. By tuning into the present moment, we can find moments of calm and clarity, even in the midst of challenging circumstances. Mindfulness helps us observe our thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them, allowing us to respond to situations with a clear mind and an open heart, rather than reacting impulsively or out of habit. Another essential aspect of prioritizing inner peace is learning to let go of the things we cannot control. Life is unpredictable, and while we may try to plan and organize every aspect of our lives, there are always external factors and events that are beyond our influence. Recognizing this reality allows us to release the need for perfection and control. When we try to control everything around us, we create unnecessary stress and resistance. On the other hand, when we accept that there are aspects of life we cannot change or predict, we can find peace in surrender. This doesn't mean giving up or being passive. Rather, it means letting go of the constant need to micromanage everything and instead embracing trust in the process of life. When we focus on what we can control, our reactions, our attitudes, and our actions, we regain a sense of peace that allows us to navigate life with greater ease. Another vital element of inner peace is the ability to detach from external validation. Many of us seek validation from others, whether it's in our work, our relationships, or our social status. We seek approval, recognition, and affirmation, believing that these external markers will bring us happiness and peace. However, true inner peace comes from knowing that our worth is not dependent on what others think of us. When we detach from the need for constant external validation, we are free to live authentically, guided by our own values and desires, rather than by the expectations of others. This process involves cultivating self-acceptance and self-love, which can be challenging but is ultimately liberating. When we no longer tie our sense of self-worth to external opinions, we create space for peace and contentment from within. Prioritizing inner peace also means setting healthy boundaries with people and situations that drain us emotionally, mentally, or physically. Often, we sacrifice our well-being in the name of pleasing others, fulfilling obligations, or avoiding conflict. However, constantly giving to others without taking care of ourselves can lead to burnout and resentment, leaving us feeling empty and disconnected. Setting boundaries is a crucial practice for preserving our energy and protecting our inner peace. By learning to say no when necessary, we honor our own needs and ensure that we are not sacrificing our peace for the sake of others. Healthy boundaries allow us to engage with the world in a way that is sustainable and aligned with our values, rather than being overwhelmed by demands and expectations that aren't in our best interest. In addition to boundaries, prioritizing inner peace requires cultivating a mindset of gratitude. Gratitude has the power to shift our focus away from what we don't have or what isn't going well, and instead directs our attention to what is positive and abundant in our lives. By regularly practicing gratitude, we train our minds to notice the small moments of beauty and joy that often go unnoticed in the hustle and bustle of daily life. Whether it's the warmth of the sun on our skin, the kindness of a stranger, or the simple pleasure of a quiet moment, these small blessings can become a steady source of peace when we take the time to appreciate them. Gratitude not only enhances our inner peace, but it also shifts our perspective, allowing us to see challenges and setbacks as opportunities for growth, rather than threats to our well-being. A key part of maintaining inner peace is also prioritizing self-care. Taking time to care for our bodies, minds, and spirits is essential for our overall well-being. This could mean engaging in physical activities that nourish the body, such as exercise, yoga, or walking in nature. It could also mean engaging in mental practices like journaling, reading, or meditating, which help clear the mind and foster emotional balance. Additionally, self-care includes spiritual practices, whether that means connecting with a higher power, practicing mindfulness, or simply taking time to reflect on what truly matters. When we prioritize self-care, we create the foundation for inner peace, because we are tending to our needs and replenishing our energy reserves rather than depleting them. Another significant aspect of inner peace is embracing forgiveness, both for ourselves and others. Holding on to grudges, resentment, or guilt can create internal tension and unrest. When we cling to negative emotions from the past, we prevent ourselves from moving forward and finding peace in the present. Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior or forgetting the pain we've experienced. It means releasing the hold that these emotions have on us. By forgiving ourselves for past mistakes and forgiving others for their actions, we free ourselves from the emotional burden that keeps us from experiencing peace. Forgiveness allows us to heal, let go of the past, and create space for new opportunities, relationships, and growth. In essence, prioritizing inner peace requires a commitment to self-awareness, self-care, and a willingness to let go of external pressures and distractions. It means focusing on what we can control, embracing the present moment, and cultivating a deep sense of acceptance and gratitude. By making inner peace a priority, we create the mental and emotional space necessary to live with intention, clarity, and joy. The peace that we cultivate within ourselves radiates outward, positively affecting not only our own lives, but also the lives of those around us.